Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is, wherever you are. And I am Aneesh de Vos, and we have, apart from our amazing guests, we have, good drum roll today, the wonderful, the amazing, the very interested, ready to learn a lot, David Buckler.
Yes.
David, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Aneesh. How are you?
I'm not bad. I've got a stripy blanket today. I've changed my background a little.
Very North American.
Well, I do really love that history. However, we're not going to talk about that today.
No, or even about me.
No, definitely not about you, David. You are way down the list.
No.
Okay, so today we have somebody who is such a good friend of mine and such an amazing human being who I admire a lot. Her name is Kim Stevens. She is a mother of two big girls. She is somebody's partner. She is also in a wheelchair because she is quadriplegic. Kim, tell us why and what happened to you. We always love people's stories. Hello, Kim.
Hello, Aneesh, and hello, David.
Hello. Great to have you with us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, David. I'm glad to be here. Yes. Well, I'll tell you a little bit then. I am in a wheelchair. I'm quadriplegic, or the term sometimes that's used is tetraplegic, which means 4 limbs are affected. So I have a spinal cord injury at level C6, C7. And I also, when I broke my neck in a fall, I fell downstairs and I broke my neck at that level, which pierced, the bone in my neck pierced my spinal cord, which rendered me in a wheelchair. And I also broke my back, and I also had a head injury with it.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I didn't do things by halves. I decided to get it all done in one go. And I spent, that was 9.5 years ago. And I spent nearly a year at Sheffield Spinal Unit in the UK. So yes, so it's been 9.5 years on the road to recovery, but I've learnt an awful lot, learnt to cope with it. And actually I do feel quite lucky. So that's good.
A lot of people would be listening to this, Kim, and they would think, bloody hell, where does that feeling of luck come in?
Well, the feeling of luck is when I went into Sheffield Hospital, there were injuries there, simple injuries, something that people don't know. There was 2 or 3 patients there that had an abscess, which grew on their spinal cord and pushed their spinal cord out and inflamed it. And they were rendered, like myself, as a quadriplegic. And that is just something that just happened. No accident involved.
Wow.
So on that sense, I do feel lucky. And I'm still able to sit up in a chair, whereas some people with my injury aren't quite so lucky. So that's why I feel lucky. I can get around in the chair. I have a group of 3 carers who look after me, including my partner. And yes, so life goes on and it looks good, upwards and onwards, as they say.
Okay. And,
yeah.
You're saying this is 9.5 years ago and, you had a year in hospital. Do you ever think about, what life was like before? Or, I mean, I know you well, and I know that you are very, very accepting. I mean, you literally, I sometimes put me to shame. I'm just like, wow, this woman just literally holds her life in her hands. You literally do, because you're moving your chair around. So you literally do. But is there ever, or was there a part of you that thought, geez?
Well, I suppose thinking about it, funnily enough, I always dream, and when I do dream, I always dream that I'm walking. And the interesting thing is most people in a wheelchair that I've spoken to dream that they're able-bodied. So I think the only real part that I find difficult is my eldest daughter was ill a couple of years ago, and she was in a flat on the 4th floor, and she telephoned me in tears, and that was the only time really that got me down, because I couldn't just get in a car and go to her because I don't drive. I have to rely on my carers, and even if I'd have got there, can't get up 4 weeks. Could try, but I wouldn't be very successful. So there are times like that where there's incidents where perhaps you're needed or you want to go somewhere and you have to rethink. But it's the rethinking process.
And what
in
does
other
that
words,
entail?
with my daughter when she was ill and I couldn't get to her, I did a FaceTime call. So we talked. So I think, although sometimes I think, oh, my computer, I've got an iPad, I get in a muddle with it, like I have done with Zoom. But at the end of the day, without it, I think I would be terribly lost. Yes. So you can get round these things. There are ways that you can perhaps see people or talk to people about something or other. So, that's probably different to other people who can just get in a car, but at least I can communicate. Communication is the biggest thing. If you can communicate with somebody, then I think that's quite important. Certainly for me, anyway. But,
Well, you and I are both very chatty people, aren't we, Kim? So,
we are.
David, would you like to butt in before Kim and I carry on gassing?
Carry on. Poor David.
No, I don't mind being sidelined at all. In fact, I don't feel sidelined. I'm going to ask you something quite simple, both of you. I'm interested in how you met, because I know there's going to be a story behind this, because there always is with Aneesh. And she's left already, so this must be a very good question.
It is a good question.
Leading to something else.
Well,
if it's very embarrassing, Kim, it's okay. I'll let you.
No, it isn't true. I was with a care agency, and I had a fantastic carer called Catherine, who I miss terribly. She moved up to Scotland. And because she moved to Scotland, I mean, she could have commuted to see me. I mean, she could have come every day, couldn't she?
I don't see why not. No.
I don't see why not, really. But anyway.
I think it's very rude of her.
And through Catherine, I met Aneesh, because Aneesh was doing massages at that time. And all sorts, head massages, back massages, everything. And she came to my aid, and it was brilliant, because being in a wheelchair, people that are in a wheelchair will know you get very stiff, you get your neck aches, your arms ache, your shoulders ache. And then I found Aneesh, and then Aneesh did some care work as well for me, and just a beautiful friendship. Lovely
and
for me.
I'm giggling because
we have got some funny stories.
I'm giggling because, I mean, speaking about massage, when Catherine phoned me and said, I'm like thinking, and Kim knows this, I remember that I'd got a load of stuff in the car, and so I couldn't, believe it or not, I couldn't get my massage bed in the car. I spent half an hour trying to get my massage bed in the car. Just picture this. Then after half an hour, and I was pretty peed off about it, and after half an hour I went, she can't get on a massage bed, Aneesh, what on earth are you doing? So when I knew Kim, I told her, and she was just like cracked up. I literally am an airhead. And then Kim's right, on the odd occasion, if somebody wasn't available, and I'd done care work a lot in my past, I was like, yeah, definitely. And Kim is always gorgeous, always looking gorgeous, right? And so she said, could you dry my hair? And I went, oh. So I dried Kim's hair. And everybody else could, I mean, everybody else does it beautifully. I mean, look, I've got rags. So trying to keep saying, I'm chatting away as I do, trying to do these loops with a comb or a brush, which couldn't do. I think I almost burnt your ear off, didn't I?
You did indeed, Aneesh. I think I've still got the scar if you haven't looked closely. I decided in the end, probably the easiest thing was just to give Aneesh a pair of straighteners, just to straighten my hair. And it's been straightish ever since.
She does have a lasting effect.
She does. And I think at one stage, actually, the brush got tangled in my hair. I had much longer hair than David. And she said, oh, this happens to me. And I thought, oh, lovely. Now it's happened to me. We were actually, at one point, thought about cutting it out of my hair.
She's exaggerating now. But oh my goodness me. I mean, so yeah, they are.
We have lots of stories.
There are lots of stories, but I think they are two of the funniest, weren't they? Because I'm just like, and when I, like I say, got brave enough to say to Kim, actually, the first time I was going to see you, I got really, spent ages trying to get this massage bed in, and Kim like looked at me, I was like, I know. So, but it was talking from a point of view. Kim has this, I mean, this magical beauty when you massage Kim, in terms of, even though you can't feel part of your body, there is this awareness, isn't there? There is this sensing.
Yes. I get a lot of tingling. And basically, from what I've been told through the hospital, it's my nerve endings trying to connect. And that's 24/7, so that you get lots of buzzing in your body. It's a bit like, if you can imagine having a bottle of champagne inside you, all bubbling away. It's not unpleasant, but sometimes it can be a bit of a nuisance. So
And so when you're working with Kim in massage and that, for sure, you still massage those areas that Kim is, can't feel, but Kim has an awareness that you're in that area. It's something that I had never experienced before.
There's certainly areas pinpointing, and it's strange because I can feel like internally, like if you're hungry, and I still get that feeling. I don't honestly, I mean, whether people might say differently, quite possibly, but I'm not sure there's such a thing as total paralysis. I'm not sure. I know, because like when people have limbs removed and they say they can still feel that lip.
Yeah.
But is it your mind playing tricks with you? Is it memory? I'm not really quite sure. But certainly I can feel certain things inside, like when I'm hungry and things like that. Yeah. So that's amazing. And yet, I suppose you could, dare I say this, put a knife into me and I wouldn't actually feel that. So it's very, very strange. Very strange. That's why I think spinal cord injury is so interesting, because everybody is so different.
You were saying earlier about that somebody that you before we came on, that somebody had the same injury as you, however the presentation was different.
Yes. I broke my neck at level C6, C7, and I was in hospital with a lovely young man, and he broke his neck at the same point, within, a fraction of a centimetre, really, a millimetre. And yet we were very, very different in our abilities, what we were left with, what feelings we were left with, how he couldn't transfer himself, for instance, into his chair. By the way, I use a slide board, and for people that don't know what that is, it's literally a board, and I put it on my wheelchair and either into the car or my bed, and I just literally drag and slide my body along, and I'm able to use my arms to do that. But this poor young lad couldn't do that. So, you know, that's why I do feel sometimes that I am quite lucky with my injuries. Everybody's very different. Everybody has their own personal problems that they have to deal with. And whilst mine is visible because I'm in a chair, then there's some people that have real problems, but it's not visible.
I have watched you, and you're quite right when you say drag yourself across the board.
Yeah.
And that must take, never mind the strength, but the determination that you have for that.
Thank you.
You know, I'm often, you know, like I say, it genuinely in awe of you, because you genuinely are like this all the time. You're just a crack. Do you know what I mean? You're so funny.
Oh, thank you. But I think we all have our down days, don't we?
We do,
we all
absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes I do feel down, and then I think of my situation, and I've got 4 wonderful carers that work for me. I've got a nice flat, ground floor flat in Sheringham.
Yes.
So yeah. So I think I've always been quite a positive person. But I think you're either positive or you're not positive. And I think if you're not positive, that's when trouble can happen. In the sense that it's hard to deal with things.
Yeah. Did you have any therapeutic support to help you emotionally, just to the life that you are in now?
Yes, in the hospital, I did have help. But what I would add, which is that at the time, my youngest daughter was 17, and my partner, and they went through, obviously, a lot. And they never got any support, which I thought was quite sad, because it's not just about me, it's about the people around me as well.
Yeah.
And I was quite surprised, especially my 17-year-old daughter, that she didn't get support.
Yeah.
Oh, my partner.
Yeah, because it does change everybody's life, as you say, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It affects everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. But...
David, you're always the person-centered guy.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to add anything in there? You are.
Yeah, I just think it's amazing that you can keep that positivity. I'm not sure how I would feel. I would imagine that I would have felt a lot of anger, I think, of being sort of left in that situation. And that's why I'm pretty much in awe of you, I guess, to be so positive. But again, you know, and I'm wondering what the difference is. As I said earlier on, you know, my nephew is almost 30 now, was born with cerebral palsy. And he's never known walking or running or that sensation. And I'm wondering how much worse that must be for you. Whereas, you know, he is ignorant of that sensation. One might say blissfully. I know it's something he would dearly love to do, but you've been there and done that and been active, and I wonder what is worse.
I think actually, in your nephew's situation, I think that's harder. Also, when I was in hospital, there were 4 or 5 youngsters under the age of 20 who had previously walked but had an accident and were no longer able to walk. And I befriended a 21-year-old girl, and she was at the start of her life. I was nearly 49. I'd had my holidays, I'd had my children. So I never really felt angry. And these youngsters, all of them were incredible. They put the older ones to shame. honestly, they just got on with it. They got in their wheelchairs. They had racing around the wards, competitions. And I got sort of dragged in with it as well, and I didn't mind. And they were very uplifting, actually. And I noticed there were a few my age group. We were all right, but it was kind of, I don't know. Again, I think it's whether you're a positive person or not.
Yeah.
But certainly the younger people who had all their lives ahead of them, I was in awe of them because, yeah, they were fantastic. They really were. Yeah.
Do you think that impacts your emotional well-being, because you were, do you know what I mean, in that, it sounds like you were all really supportive of each other, so do you think that makes a difference?
Yes.
In specialist unit, everybody is in similar situations, so do you think that helps?
Yes, I do. I mean, there was a lot of camaraderie, because we were all in there anything between probably 8-9 months up to the year. All in similar situations, that we'd all either had an accident or an illness. So yes, we were all in the same boat, and you do help each other. And I didn't really meet anybody that was unpositive, if I can think of another word. I'm trying to think. Negative. I didn't really meet anybody that was truly negative. But the only trouble is you do get institutionalised. And I remember when I had my release date, I was collected in a minibus, and I suddenly thought, actually, I don't want to go home. Yeah, I really didn't want, I was dreading my release date. That's the only way I can think about calling it. And actually, yes, I was. And that was the most frightening part to me, because all the time I had my friends on the ward, I had the nurses, same nurses on rotas, so you get to know them, you get to know their families, you get to know their children, and their life stories as well. So it's kind of like one big family, and I was very surprised of all the different people that were there, different religions, all sorts, and yet we all seemed to muddle in because we had one thing in common. It's either you survive or you don't survive. I think that's the way of putting it. And the way to survive is all to work together. So actually, yes, it was a happy time, a funny time, some of the things that we got up to. So yes, so I would say it was an enjoyable time. But once I got home, I went home to a new house. So I'd never seen the house before, but it was bought. I said to my partner, please buy something with 3 bedrooms. A 3-bedroom bungalow would be good. Well, we got the 3 bedrooms, but it was a 3-story house. So I basically took over the ground floor, and then we realised after a time, once Emily had left and moved on, it was far too big for us. So that's when we got our flat. But yeah, I mean, obviously there were times in the hospital when I was actually poorly. And recently, about 18 months ago now, I battled sepsis. Which I was very lucky. I had an abscess, and of course I wouldn't feel it on my appendix, and it got bigger and bigger, and I kept thinking something's wrong, and then it burst, and then I realised I was in trouble. But yes, so I guess there's always something with everybody. It's not just me, but there's always something around the corner that you're never sure of. And I think, I don't know, but I have got a good team around me, so I am lucky. And I did have you, Aneesh, until you decided to move to Lancaster.
Just, sorry.
I guess I just have to manage it well.
What
can I say? But yes, yeah, I think that's I'm trying to think of anything else that I can add to this. But like anybody in a wheelchair, you have your ups, your downs, and sometimes you don't have a good experience in hospital. I haven't always had the best experience, but certainly when it's Sheffield, it's long term. So that's very different. It's a very different environment to, say, your local hospital that you might be admitted for a few days or a week or something like that. So,
and that leads then into, how do people, you know, treat you for being in a wheelchair? We spoke earlier about this, you know, how do people speak to you in a wheelchair?
Well, I think where I live in my town, I haven't ventured too far over the last couple of years because of COVID, or 18 months. So people have obviously got to know me in the town, shopkeepers and neighbours, etc. So that's been quite good. So people do talk to me, but occasionally you will get somebody that will talk over you. And I kind of say, oh, hello, I'm Kim, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes people are a little bit embarrassed and say, oh yes, hello. I mean, I have had negativity towards me, but I think that's, again, part of life. I would say the majority of times I don't have a problem, but I'm not very widely, how can I explain it? I don't really go out too far from where I live. Right. I have had, my last holiday was a bit of a disaster because they didn't have the right bed, which I use a profile bed. They didn't have a shower chair for me. So we sort of got there and then had to turn around and come back. So that was disappointing. So that kind of has put me off holidays, I must admit. But apart from that, I've stayed sort of to the North Norfolk coast where I am. But I'm happy with that. You know, especially when you get good weather at the moment. We're having a lovely, lovely weather. About time too.
Yeah.
So yes, yeah.
I wonder if you'd ever experienced, and I think what I can only describe as overkill. I used to take my nephew out a lot in his wheelchair. When I was going through uni the first time, it was a job that he gave me as a carer. And we went to meet some people in a fast food restaurant who shall remain nameless. And they seem to have had a designated person who's responsible for people in wheelchairs and the like. And as soon as we walked in, there was suddenly this, and she was not a young person, she, in the full uniform, sprang into life, cleared this huge alleyway, moving people out the way almost bodily to get us to a table. And this, we could have quite easily done it, you know, under our own steam. The only thing she didn't do was beat a drum and bang a gong and blow a whistle. And I was looking at Joe and he's looking at me, and I thought, just, we've experienced it before, just let him get on with it. So yeah, and the ultimate was, I think he'd ordered a drink and she looked at me and said, does he want a large cup? And I said, well, ask him. So, you know, I think the training was well meant, but it had sort of missed the mark somewhat.
Yeah.
And I hope they've done something about it since, because I'm going back quite a few years now.
Yeah.
I wondered if you've experienced something similar.
Yes, there has been occasions when it has been a bit overkill.
Yeah.
I remember I went into, my eldest daughter took me into a shop, which again, I won't name, but there was a lot of things in the way. It was very crowded in there with clothes and rails. And she said to this shop assistant, I can't get my mother round here. And the shop assistant looked and said, my mother's in a wheelchair. And that was it. And I thought, well, I'm sure love, she can see that I'm in a wheelchair. Not quite sure what you're expecting her to do. So there are situations like that where it is a little bit overkill. I would say though, today is so much better than 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I think if certainly I find younger people, sounds awful, doesn't it? Always saying about younger people, but they're much more aware of disabilities.
Yeah,
I think they are.
And you know, I was reading the other day, and did you know that Down syndrome children never went into mainstream school until 1984?
Wow, was it that late?
It was that late.
Gosh.
Wow.
And I was quite shocked.
Me
and I
too.
actually remember thinking about that as well. And when I was at school, we didn't have anybody with a disability in our school. And I left school in 1980. And yeah, there was nobody with a disability there. And I thought that was quite shocking. So I think as we've moved on, I think time has been super. I think people are much more aware. Certainly younger people, because you do have people with disabilities in schools now. Excuse me, I've got hay fever. So that's a good thing. So I have found a lot of positivity in that sense. But also I watched the one-off series about Dr. Gutmann. I don't know if anyone else recognises that name.
No.
But he was a German doctor who in the 1950s decided that actually people with spinal cord injury shouldn't just be laid in bed just to die. They should be helped. And that was when they first started to use a slide board.
Wow.
Yeah, if you watch the programme, the series, well, it's not a series, it's a one-off programme, and you actually see somebody using the slide board. They kind of move him, and then I think it was on that programme, but yeah, I think it was that one. So, but it was certainly he was aware of it, and he got people, because he was involved with Stoke Mandeville Hospital, and that's where the Paralympic Games started from there. And he was an instigator in that, because he believed that people, even in a wheelchair, still can have a reasonably good life. They can still get involved in doing things instead of laid in a bed. It's quite a good drama. I'm not sure which channel it was on, but I watched it in hospital actually. So that would have been 9.5, nearly 10 years ago when it was first shown. But yeah, it was very interesting. So yeah, so I'm glad that people now understand. So I do get the odd bit of negativity, like if you're walking down a busy high street and someone will just walk straight in front of you and catch their foot on the wheelchair, and they turn around and make out as though it's my fault. Oh my goodness.
Are you tempted just to give them a ram, Kim? You know, just to try it a bit harder.
I am. And if people are grumpy, I do try and actually run over their feet. Especially if they've got Jesus creepers on, or sandals, open-toed sandals. But yeah.
That's why you're my hero. Love that.
Yeah.
Oh dear. And also, the other thing I think is people assume, for some reason, if you're in a wheelchair, you don't have any intelligence.
Oh, you're deaf.
I've come across that too.
Yeah. Deaf,
yeah.
no intelligence.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
and they come up to you and they say, "Would you like sugar with your tea?"
Yeah.
And I say, "Yes, please."
Yeah.
So things like that. So, and I think people just, if they're not used to disabilities, it can be very difficult to approach somebody. But in my previous job, I worked with adults with learning disabilities. So actually, I was used to pushing people in a wheelchair myself. And now the roles have reversed, and now I'm in a wheelchair. So, but people with learning disabilities, it's still the same thing. People don't often know how to approach.
Yeah.
So yeah, but as I say, hopefully we're learning things and we're moving on, and yeah.
I hope the facilities that are available catch up with the positivity. I remember that Joe my nephew was elected to be head of youth parliament, and he was invited to the House of Commons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a bright kid. Still call him kid, even though he's almost 30 now, but that's my prerogative, I guess. And he was half an hour late for the meeting because he couldn't get off the platform. There was no egress for him in a wheelchair to get off the platform when he got there.
Oh,
I've actually had that.
And he gave them a severe round of when he got there, and said the first thing I want to talk about is why I'm late.
Yeah.
So yeah, a few people got scorched ears, I think, that afternoon.
Yeah.
In Parliament.
Well, also, I think a lot of like old buildings and things, we have a lot of old buildings in Sheringham, and they're not, there's no way of adapting them for people in wheelchairs. So that can be a bit frustrating. And I had a situation wanting to go on a train, and that happened to me. They had to go and find a platform, it's like a little bridge. It's a metal bridge that bridges. But now I think the new trains do actually pull up quite close to the platform, so there's only an inch or two gap, I think. But as I say, I might be wrong because I haven't travelled on a train for a while. But we have got new trains, which I haven't been on yet to try them. So I
believe they're supposed to be equipped with a ramp.
Yes. Yeah. But I think, I'm hoping that in the future, I don't know how far in the future, but I think spinal cord injury and working with stem cell research. I'm hoping that in, 20, 30 years, actually it'll be a thing of the past. I do believe in the future we won't have people as wheelchair users, and that would be fantastic.
I think you're right,
Yeah, I really do. I think they'll... if you think in the last 100 years what we've achieved medically, I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
So hopefully that would be a lovely thing. But
that would.
Yeah, so it is challenging sometimes. We have I have a train track in Sheringham, and not every time, but most times I go over the train track, and if the wheels are in the wrong way, they go down the train track, and we get stuck. So we have to sort of lever myself out with my carer's help. So that's annoying, but there are annoying obstacles being in a wheelchair, and sometimes I do get a bit frustrated. And I do sometimes think with facilities for people in wheelchairs, quite a funny time was we were talking about disabled, well, you can't say disabled toilets now, it's accessible toilets. And we were going to do a blog on it because some of them really weren't accessible. And we went to one, and it had a huge slope, a short, huge slope. So even a paraplegic who propels themselves, I would be very surprised if they could get up. But then the door opened outwards. So you have to be on this slope and open the door. But then you still can't get in because there was a bin, a concrete bin. There's a concrete piece where you put a bin in. So you couldn't get in on your own anyway. So we gave up on that one. So there's, I think, a lot of things, a lot of facilities. I think they should actually use people in wheelchairs or wheelchair users.
Yeah.
I really do think they should use people in wheelchairs to give them a guide.
Yeah.
Because unless you're in a wheelchair, and sometimes they'll have things like the toilet roll holder right over the back of the toilet. Yes. And then I think, well, I'm not going to be able to get that.
Yeah.
So there's little things I think that could be well and truly tweaked.
Definitely.
Yeah. But that will always be like that though, won't it?
Yeah, I guess it's never going to be perfect, but goodness
of course, we don't live in a perfect world, do we?
Yeah, it should be a little bit more thought out. Who the heck would put toilet paper behind a toilet? goodness me, you know, you can't.
Yeah.
That's a real assumption, isn't it, that everybody can grab it?
Yes.
And we won't talk about toilet paper and COVID in any case. We won't go there. We won't go on that one. Do you know, Kim, I am in awe of you, and I have the greatest of respect. And I am so glad you're still here, because you scared us 18 months ago. You scared the bejesus out of us.
Well, I think yes, I do think I'm very lucky, because at the moment I do have a friend that is fighting sepsis in hospital, and he's struggling. So you don't, I mean, it's very strange, isn't it? How some people can have something like that, or develop something and get better. Some people don't get better. Some people have lifelong injuries or lifelong problems through an illness. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I think it's sometimes we just get lucky, don't we?
I love that you are lucky.
Yeah, I do, and I do
friends
consider
lucky too.
lucky. Thank you, David. Yeah, and it's like David's nephew Joe. I'm sure he has a good quality of life.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
He enjoys life to the full.
And you can do, you know, it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, I seem to have bit on. I'm sort of focused on the doom and gloom bits, but there's a few highlights of going out with Joe, and one of them was when I took him to the Arboretum, the Memorial Gardens here near to me, the National Arboretum. And the centerpiece is this winding road that goes up to this magnificent stone, they're walls in actual fact. You've probably seen it on TV where names are carved into them. And on the way down from there, Joe was motorised then, which is quite lethal at the time, and ended up in a conifer. And there's me on this slope telling him to stop climbing trees. So you can imagine what the group of people around me, because we had that joint humour going on, and I was telling him off and up for climbing trees in this motorised wheelchair.
Oh, how funny!
So we've had some hilarious moments.
Oh yes, I mean, you know, I can remember in hospital, and we had to do our own washing. And so I went to the washing machine, managed to open it, managed to even get the washing from my lap into the washing machine. But then suddenly I realised I hadn't put my brakes on. So I'm holding on to the washing machine door, calling out for help, because I had two hands on it. I couldn't let go because I would just come out. So there are quite a lot of funny stories actually. But yes. I have come out of my chair a few times. And in fact, recently, last week, I was on my shower chair, and my shower chair just slipped and went away. And I ended up sitting on top of my carer's lap. Thankfully, she's very strong. And so I was just sat on her lap with my arms around her neck. And I said, "What do we do now?" And she said, "Well, I can't hold you much longer, Kim." I'm not quite as slim-like as I used to be, and so she just sat back down on the floor, and then just gently put me on the floor, and I sat on the floor, and then we had to wait till I got somebody else in to lift me back in my chair. But thankfully, I didn't hurt her. That was what I was more concerned about. But we were laughing about that. But so yeah, lots of things, and I have come out of my chair in the town, which is hugely embarrassing.
Yeah.
Especially when we come out of the cinema, and we've got a little Sheringham Little Theatre, and we have a cinema in there as well. And we'd come out, and I fell out the chair, and I was picked up by three very elderly gentlemen, way into their 80s, and they sat me in the chair, and I just thought, somehow this is just the wrong way round. But they were delightful, bless them. But I was so embarrassed. But sometimes you just have to get over your embarrassments. But yeah.
I literally, David and I always say it, we could talk all day.
Yeah.
We really could. Kim,
Yeah,
thank you. Do you know what? Thank you for coming and being
It's been
you.
a pleasure.
Yeah, thank
It's been
you
a
so
pleasure.
much.
And I
It's
hope
been
what I
a
said
pleasure.
is accurate, by the way. I'm sure, only to my knowledge. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's been lovely.
Thank you.
David, talk us out, my love.
Well, how can we follow this again?
Come on.
Thank you for being with us, and thank you so much, Kim. It's been a pleasure and an honour, and and moving but stimulating, I think, and I hope it's given a lot of people a lot of encouragement. So thanks again.
I hope so. And thank you, David. Nice to meet you. Finally, nice to meet you, even though it's over Zoom.
Thank you.
So
Bye.
it's bye-bye from us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aneesh, and thank you, David.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. You too. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye.